welcome into this week's edition of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series preview show right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, welcome. On this channel, we discuss a lot of motorsports, mainly NASCAR, ARCA, IndyCar, and Formula One. That's what we cover right now. We plan to expand that scope eventually, but that is what we cover at the moment. So for today, we are previewing the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series from Kansas Speedway, the 8th annual KC Masterpiece 400. And we've got one practice session and qualifying to look at to get ready for tonight's race. There were supposed to be two practice sessions yesterday. Because of the rain yesterday morning, they abbreviated the schedule slightly and just kind of combined the two practice sessions. Which kind of made sense, really, because it was a practice session, then 30 minutes to an hour off with nothing on track, and then the other practice session. So it kind of made sense just to combine the two and make them one practice session. So we do have that to look at here, and as we see on the practice sheet here, Kevin Harvick topped the board with a fast lap of 29.009, 186.149 miles per hour. He was just barely faster than Kyle Larson, though. As you'll see, Larson was right there with him. And the interesting thing as we look down here through this list, Kevin Harvick only ran 32 laps in this practice session, which comparatively to everyone else is not a lot. If you look down through here, I know you've only got the top 10 on your graphic here, but the most laps run in this practice session was Joey Logano with 66. And the scary thing about that, if you're a Joey Logano fan, he ran 66 laps. His fastest lap was his first lap on track at a 29.795. 25th on the board. So, no speed really whatsoever out of Joey Logano in this practice session. They were really throwing everything they possibly could at it. Some surprises at the top of the board. I think I'm surprised to see Eric Jones as high up as I am, as he is. I'm not surprised to see Eric Jones have speed. I'm surprised to see him have top 5 speed. We just haven't seen that out of Eric Jones yet this season. It's nice to see that. Daniel Suarez looks to be backing up his great run in Dover last week. He was 6th on the board. Eric Almirola, fast as usual, always good at Kansas. Chris Buescher, 8th on the board. I'm very happy to see that as well. Some guys maybe to be worried about, including Joey Logano. Kurt Busch, only 17th fastest with a 29.47. Jamie McMurray, 18th. Denny Hamlin in 20th. Jimmy Johnson, 21st. He had a 29.583. Alex Bowman in 22nd. Bubba Wallace, 23rd. Matt Kenseth in his triumphant return to the 2018 season for Roush Fenway Racing in that 6-car, 28th fastest, with a 30.049, over a second slower than Kevin Harvick. So anybody thinking that Matt Kenseth's going to come out here and win in his first time back, I don't think it's going to happen. I would like to see it happen. Those Roush Fenway cars just don't have the speed, though. And he's not that far off of his teammate Ricky Stenhouse. Although I say that, Stenhouse was 19th on the board. Stenhouse was a half a second faster than Kenseth with a 29.50. So that 6 bunch has some work to do. Austin Dillon also way down on the list in 29th. Then we can look at 10-lap consecutive averages here. This is what really will show you who is going to be fastest in the race, I think, because it gives you a good idea of who's fastest over the long run. And not surprisingly, we see a lot of the same guys at the top of this list. Kevin Harvick fell back just a bit on this list. He's not got quite as much long run speed, it seems, as the rest of these guys, which might be a concern for him. He's only 6th fastest on this board. His average speed over 10 laps was 179.063. That's a drop-off of 7 miles per hour from his single lap speed. Whereas Kyle Larson topped the 10-lap average with a 179.685. So there is a lot of fall-off here over 10 laps, over the long run for these guys. It seems like there's a lot more for them than there was for the trucks, because as we pointed out yesterday in the truck preview, Ben Rhodes over 10 laps only lost about a mile an hour over his single lap speed. So there seems to be a lot more fall off for the Cup cars than there are for the trucks over the long runs here, which could be interesting to watch. But an idea of who might be fast here as we look down through the 10-lap averages. Kyle Larson, as we said, tops this board. Kyle Busch, Eric Almirola, Clint Bowyer, Ryan Blaney. That's your top 5 for 10-lap averages. Joey Logano seems to have a little bit more speed over the long run. Maybe not more speed, but just more consistent over the long run than most of these guys who seem to be falling off a little more, as Joey Logano slots in 7th on the 10-lap average sheet. So that might be a little bit of hope for you if you are a Joey Logano fan, that no, he doesn't have the single lap speed, it seems, but he does have the long run speed. So that's your practice session from yesterday. Now let's look at how they will line up for tonight, and then we'll make a prediction and get you ready for tonight's race. As we see, Kevin Harvick picks up the pole for this one. The Busch pole. I believe this is the first time the Busch car has gotten the Busch pole. Topped it with a speed of 2860, 188.811 miles per hour. Ryan Blaney with a very quick lap jumps up to 2nd in qualifying. 2875, 187.826 miles per hour. And then as we look down through the rest of the starting lineup, great starting spot for Eric Almirola. Like we keep saying, he is good here at Kansas. I would not sleep on him this weekend. He is going to be a contender tonight. And I think he's got a very good chance of winning this race and picking up his first win for Stewart-Haas Racing, 2nd of his career. Down through the rest of the field, a great qualifying run for Chris Buescher. Chris Buescher seems to have a lot of speed this weekend, which is great to see because he's not had a lot of speed since going to JTG Doherty Racing. He's not really had a lot of speed, period, since he's been in the Cup Series, but I think that's just been a matter of the teams he's been with. Because he started off with Front Row Motorsports, which we know outside of plate tracks usually is not very competitive. And the same with JTG Doherty Racing. They're a little faster than Front Row, but not by much. They're not one of the teams you see contending up front week in and week out. So for Chris Buescher to have top 10 speed, both in practice and in qualifying this weekend, is great to see. I would love to see him get a top 10 finish legitimately because he had that speed this weekend. Down through the rest of the field, we look at some guy. Eric Jones seems to have fallen off just a bit from his practice speed. Qualified in 12th. Slowest guy in that final round of qualifying at a 29.16. That might be a bit concerning if you're an Eric Jones fan. I mean, he did have really quick lap in practice, but seems to have fallen off a bit in qualifying. Chase Elliott down there in 17th. Alex Bowman in 19th. Bubba Wallace slots in 21st. And then we got some big names back here in the 20s as well. Kyle Larson, most notably, there in 22nd. Jimmy Johnson right behind him in 23rd. Jamie McMurray, 24th. And then as we look down even lower, we look down into the 30s. There are 6 cars here that did not make it through pre-qualifying inspection, so they did not get out to make a lap in the first round. That's why they are in the bottom here, and they will be starting in order of owner points. Those being Clint Boyer, who, as we've already seen, is a very fast car this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see him come from the back. Casey Kane, Matt Kenseth didn't even get to make a qualifying lap because of pre-qualifying inspection. But as we saw in practice, not really sure he'd have been able to do much better than that anyway. Michael McDowell, Matt DiBenedetto, and Timmy Hill also did not make it through pre-qualifying inspection. So that's your starting lineup for tonight's KC Masterpiece 400. Now, as for a prediction tonight, on RNN Talks on Wednesday, I said Eric Almirola would win tonight. I did change my pick last night on the truck preview. As now that we're doing these preview shows, it gives me a little more leeway here to see who's actually fast in the weekend. Now, I probably should change my pick to Kevin Harvick. How can you pick against Kevin Harvick right now? He's got 4 wins this season. He topped practice. He got the pole in qualifying. How can you bet against Kevin Harvick? I'm going to, though, because I'm going to stick with Eric Almirola. And I say that because Eric Almirola has the same equipment Kevin Harvick does. This might be Eric Almirola's best track. And he's been super fast all weekend. He's only 2/10 off of his teammate Harvick here in qualifying. Qualified at a 28.81, whereas Harvick was a 28.60. So he's not that far off. 1 or 2 adjustments throughout the race if he's there up front. If he's still up front at the end of the race, which I think he will be, I think Eric Almirola is a serious contender for the win tonight, and I think he gets it done. I think Eric Almirola picks up his first win of the 2018 season, becomes the 3rd Stewart-Haas driver to lock himself into the playoffs this season. Eric Almirola wins the KC Masterpiece 400 tonight. Now, before we let you go, we will give you the tune-in info for tonight's KC Masterpiece 400. 8 p.m. Eastern is the broadcast start time. If you're watching on TV, it'll be on Fox Sports 1, on the radio, on your local MRN affiliate, and on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, Channel 90. So that will do it for today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series preview show. Thank you, as always, for joining me. If you haven't done it already, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing from Racing News Now. We'll have a recap of this race coming up tomorrow, probably late morning. Hit that big thumbs up button if you like the video. It is much appreciated. And don't forget to support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/racingnewsnow. Like I say every time, it is not required. Believe me, it is not. You can definitely enjoy these videos for free. I don't mind at all. But it's very much appreciated when you do help us out on Patreon, because it just helps us continue to grow and give you better quality content into the future. So with that, this has been the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series preview show. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.